In. Lovely. All right. So thank you so much, mentees, for joining in for today's session. Thank you so much, Ashish, for agreeing to doing the session as well. We're very excited for today's webinar. This webinar is in collaboration with QFIS. QFIS is a mentorship platform with a community of experts who guide individuals in their journey. So QFIS also hosts coaching and workshops on different topics. So we'll put in their link in the chat section for anybody who's interested in connecting to amazing mentors like Ashish. So I'll just drop the link at the bottom. Lovely. So thank you so much once again, Ashish. Today's topic is going to be building an AI voice technology system. And it's amazing with your expertise to be coming on board and giving us a couple of pro tips on helping the students out. So for those of you all who don't know, Ashish Jha is currently the senior voice engineer at VoiceQ. He's worked with a couple of other organizations as well before this. So I'd like Ashish to, introduce yourself. So tell us, what did you study, what did you work on, and what are you currently doing?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I am currently a New Delhi-based conversational design engineer. Like this is a new role, you can say I'm one of the very few people in this role. But what my expertise is, it's basically in creating conversational experiences for brands. And we will talk a lot about what exactly it is, what exactly I do. But before that, coming to my education, I just finished my engineering degree from Cluster Innovation Center, University of Delhi, and I majored in IT, maths, and management. And currently, I work as an independent contractor with different Amazon Alexa recommended agencies based in UK, US, even in India. And I have also have like a strong personal presence on different freelancing platforms. And I mostly work on projects which are related to smart speaker space, like building something for Alexa or Google Assistant, or even Bixby in some cases.
That sounds very interesting. I think Alexa, you say Alexa, and everyone's like, oh, I would love to, know how it works. And you, especially working on it, it seems very, very interesting. So I think before this also you're currently working as a conversational design engineer at Dixon Labs. So can you tell us what are the roles and responsibilities at this particular organization?
Sure, sure. So Vixen Labs is a London-based agency, and they primarily are working in the domain of voice strategy and voice design. And so, if we break it down in very layman terms, what they essentially do is they collaborate with brands, and these brands are like Sony Music, Reebok, Reckitt Benckiser, Lysol, all these different kind of consumer brands, and they tell them that hey, currently there are over 1 billion plus Google Assistant devices in the market and 100 million plus Alexa devices in the market. And these are all a new channel for you to engage with your customers. Why don't you have a presence on these platforms? You already have a website, you already have a mobile app, but this is a new channel. You should also build something for Google or Alexa. And this is where agencies like Vixen Labs come in. They tell these brands that this should be your voice strategy, because on these platforms, you don't have a graphical user interface mostly. Like you can just talk to it. How does your brand's voice sound? Like these brands tell like my agency, like Vixen Lab, tells these brands that you have to do this. And when they all generalize, like this is going to be the strategy, this is what we are going to build, essentially a voice bot, then my role comes in where I actually build that bot, whatever strategies and designs they have planned, I end up building it. So that's more or less kind of my role.
That sounds very cool. So you've also worked at VoiceCube as a voice developer and as a freelance Alexa developer at Fever. So I think Fever is like a project based,
Yeah.
was it? So can you tell us about these projects and how was your experience building it as well?
Yeah, sure. So I started like 3 years back, and I primarily started freelancing because the roles in this domain are very niche. Like it's hard to find like proper development jobs in this role. So I had to start as a freelancer and take on projects from all sorts of domains. Like I have worked with artists and DJs like Axwell Ingrosso, Tom Walker, Dodi, all these people, to projects in other domains as well, like building games, utility projects, something for education. I once built an skill for a dentist. Like you can see how varied it can go. And I worked for small to medium scale businesses like dry cleaners to brands like Sony Music, Reebok, and all those things. And over the last 2 years, I also managed to like intern at Clove Chef. Clove Chef is one of the cooking based AI companies based in India itself. They are, the co-founder of that company is Sanjeev Kapoor, which we all might be familiar with, the Master Chef of India. And so the idea behind the project that I built with him was that you can use Alexa to guide yourself how to cook something. Like you can ask, I want to cook this, like say butter chicken. How do I cook it? And then Alexa will guide you. You will need these ingredients. Step one, do this. Step two, do this. And voila, your dish will be ready. And yeah, that's how even I learned cooking, building through an app. So all kinds of projects I have worked on over the last few years, be it in and as a freelancer capacity or working under someone in an internship or in a contract role. So yeah.
Lovely. And I would have never imagined that, something like cooking could also use AI. And there are a lot of other departments, the health sector and a lot of other departments that are, trying to integrate AI right now. So it's an amazing field to be moving into. So you had mentioned that I think you had done IT when completed IT
Yep.
in BTech. So did you always have a passion for AI or how did it begin?
So I was coming from a CS background in school, like in 11th and 12th, I had CS. So there, and the fact that one of my majors in college was going to be IT, so coding was naturally going to be a career, one of the career choices for me. But since my college had like only 40 students per year, the luxury of having like a varied mindsets around me, people doing different things, that wasn't possible. So to expand my horizons, I just I'm lucky that I'm based in New Delhi, and there are a lot of meetup groups happening here. Like lots of people host different kind of events and webinars, all those things. So I just went out of my college and tried attending as many of these events as I could, and just eventually I tried like a lot of different paths. Like I started with mobile, then moved to web, and all the common ones that we as tech students go through. But in most of them, like I felt that like I'm trying to put in hard work, but at the end of the day, I might excel in it, but I was not enjoying it. But when I first came across Alexa and building for Alexa, at the very initial point, I felt like I have a real good chance of excelling in this field, and that's what was the difference. Knowing from inside that I could excel in it, that tempted me to go forward and work in this field exclusively.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So we have a lot of students who are from the tech background. They're currently, in college and they want to move into the field of AI. So they want to make sure that their resume stands out. So what, according to you, do you think would be required when they're in college? What projects should they be working on when they're currently in college?
Sure, sure. So, like, first you have to identify the field in which you want to work in, and there is not like a one size fits all thing. You have to keep on trying and testing what works out for you. It might take time. It's not like in 6 months you will realize that this is the field for me. I'm going to spend all my life working in it. That's not how it works. It's a marathon, and you have to try and test. And then once you zero in on the field that actually you enjoy working in, then you have to start with yourself. Think about something that you want to build. Like you can obviously watch lots of tutorials, people building some different projects. Like you can follow along, but that's in the learning phase. Once you actually go into the implementation phase, think of how you can improve that project, what you can add your touch. Like even if it's as simple as like a note taking app, which is considered a hello world app in like web development. Think how you can make it your own, add your own touch, add some feature which you think could be a good add-on, even if that feature also exists in some other app. But try to do it yourself. And then once you have an app idea, just build it. Don't think about who is going to use it, or no one is going to use it. There are already better alternatives. Look at what others have built, take inspiration from that, and build your own, because that's going to come in the learning phase, and that's what is going to stand out in your resume, that you tried building something on your own. Even if it seems like you copied someone's idea, it's not like you don't have access to their code. You wrote all the code from yourself and build it yourself, basically.
Makes sense. So for somebody who wants to move maybe in the AI field or something that you are doing with, Alexa kind of projects,
Yep.
can you tell us any AI specific projects that they can work on when they're in college, or, minor or major projects that they can work on?
Sure, sure. Like my major projects primarily were building an Alexa skill around some domain. Like I remember one of my semester-long projects in University of Delhi, I think in second or third year, was building something that helps with prospective students to learn more about University of Delhi. Like what are the different colleges, what are the different courses offered, what is the cutoff for each course, what is the category-based cutoff, what are the how far is the metro station from there, where you can find other amenities, all these kind of things. So think about a use case that you can relate with, which you can implement around you. Like, which if you are living in a hostel, think about how you can make a issue tracker, like a complaint board or something like that with voice. So the idea it should revolve around you, something that you could relate with. Don't try to tackle something very far from your field and just try to go ahead with it, because if you are building something that you are yourself a potential user of, the chances of you succeeding in building that will grow manifold.
Makes sense. So, can you tell us what are the important things to keep in mind while building an AI voice project? Because you've worked a lot on it. Any
Sure.
tips or tricks that you can share?
Sure. So before we build anything in voice, we have to take a step back and think against the conventional world. Like by the conventional world, I mean the world of web or mobile, like where we have, in essence, a display, a screen in front of us. So designing for voice is a bit different. And think of it as building an app, but just for voice. We have to understand that people converse automatically while computers don't. Like if me and you are talking right now, we both understand the context. If I say something, the attendees will be able to grasp it in the context. But if I go randomly to outside of my house and start blurbing all these things, people will think I'm a madman. They won't understand the context of what I'm talking about. And that's the same thing with computers, that they don't understand the context as beautifully as we humans do. So these are all some things that you need to keep in mind when you plan building a voice app. Computers are not smart enough to distinguish between noise and a signal with that good accuracy. Whatever I speak to them is noise. And so that's a challenge that prohibits computers from having a good conversation. You need to reimagine the entire experience from a voice first perspective. Simply porting your website or app to Alexa or Google Assistant won't work. And and another thing that I like to say, that we have to design for ear, not eyes, because we are not going to be seeing anything. And uh, designing for the ear is challenging. Like we all have talked to, say, a customer care support at one point of our life or another, and we really hate it. We don't like talking to IVR. We just want to press the buttons and just get rid of that button, talk to a human as soon as we can. So that's where designing for voice comes in. How do you make that conversation hold? How do you make sure that people enjoy talking to an IVR? Like, you don't want to ask lots of questions. You want people to speak in their words. And you have to make sure that there is adaptability and your bot is able to understand different commands that all have the same intent. Like if I am sitting here and I want to turn off the light in my room, so I can say switch off the light, turn off the light, uh, shut it down, something like any different kinds of things. Like different people will have different way of speaking, but all of us have the same intention, which is to switch off the light. So whatever project or bot you build, just make sure you give it enough training phrases that they are able to capture all those different scenarios that users can speak, and all of them have a same meaning. Like if I am to increase the volume, I can say increase the volume, turn up the volume, make it louder, anything like that. And one last thing that you should definitely remember, in voice, variety is the king, not consistency. When we are used to, say, graphics, we like things consistent. Like if I am using a website, I'm used to see the search bar on top and the menu options on the left hand side, on the right hand side. But what if the search bar is in the bottom of the page, or menu option is somewhere hidden on the middle right? Like it will feel too weird, too awkward for me. And that's what happens. Like when we are used to watching something visual, we expect things to stay where they are. Every day if someone changes it, it's going to be a mess because we can't figure out where our mental model is going to click. But with voice, every time someone speaks to us the same way, it is going to sound like a robot, like how IVR does. And we want variety there. But instead, if you call a customer care and every time it says something variable, like, hey, welcome back. How are you doing today? Good morning. Give us like, add some context to it. These things will make designing for voice is a king. And make sure it's a conversation, like I told before. Don't ask for details all at once. If an example here could be, say, I'm making a college searching bot where you can say something like, I want a university which is located in Delhi and has computer science majors and has lots of amenities around it. If you try saying that sentence in one breath, you couldn't even complete it. I want a university in Delhi which has a metro station around it, and I can't complete it. So you have to make sure you are talking to your bot, not just directing it. make sure your bot asks which city you want a college in. Then I say Delhi. Then it asks which course do you want to proceed. Then I say the course name. Then it asks what amenities would you like. So it has to be a conversation. So these are some of the design patterns that you should keep in mind whenever you build something for voice.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, a lot of them have gotten like a little bit more information if they want to, design a specific bot. So can you tell us any specific programming languages they should know if they want to design an AI voice system, or like what should they start off with and what should they be learning?
Sure. So if we are just talking about Alexa or Google Assistant space, and then I will say any programming language will do, because at the end of the day, all the heavy machine learning capabilities like natural language understanding, speech recognition, all these like heavy words are being taken care of by these platforms. Amazon takes care of it. Google Assistant takes care of it. You don't have to worry about. You only have to worry about how you design your conversation, how you form that voice model, like intents and utterances, like you put your thought process in figuring out what the user is expected to say and what should it relate to. And in the backend where you write your actual code, there all you have to write is your code in any language. It doesn't matter. It supports any, like there is something called as JSON, JavaScript object notation. All the calls back and forth from Alexa to your code goes back and forth via JSON. So JSON is like a universal language. You can write your backend logic, call APIs or databases in any programming. It will be Python, Java, Node.js, Ruby, anything. But you are just returning a JSON value. So it all comes down to that JSON. And one advice could be here that if you are just starting in this field and you don't have a grasp on any language, then I will suggest go ahead with JavaScript and Node.js. But if you are already comfortable with Python or say Java, you can also learn on that. But if you don't have prior experience, go with Node.js, because maximum resources, maximum tutorials that you will find on the internet are for Node.js and JavaScript. And JavaScript is kind of a universal language. You can possibly build anything with that, like be it a website or mobile app, or even TensorFlow.js is there for machine learning. So having a knack in JavaScript is going to help. And no disrespect to Pythonistas out there in the chat if they are there. I am definitely a JavaScript team.
Lovely. So Takshi's also asking a very interesting question. I would like to know, where did Ashish sir learn all these tricks and techniques? Which comes to my next question of, any specific, websites or apps or, certification that the students should be doing so they can get on these concepts, and, maybe websites that they can find these projects and learn from. Anything that you could
Sure.
recommend?
So, like there are a lot of resources right now. If we talk about this industry, has definitely grown a lot since I started. I started in November 2017, almost like 3 years now. And when I first started, the biggest challenge for me was definitely getting the resources, because Alexa itself hadn't launched in India at that point. So the point of having resources from here were non-existing. And at that time, it was also a very niche community globally as well. So the only thing that I had access to were the technical docs from Amazon. And believe it or not, like most of developers hate reading docs, but essentially you have to read docs if you want to be better. But today I'm glad that I'm definitely a bit of an expert in this field, because I read those tech docs. And the best way to be a good software developer in any field is having the ability to read those tech docs properly, because they cover everything. A YouTube video, a blog, or even me teaching or talking something about it right now, I will just touch the surface, the surface of a topic. But if you go through the official documentation, you will learn a lot. You will learn all the edge cases, what it supports, what are the shortcomings, why it is implemented that way. And these all learnings are second to none. So technical docs, the best place to go and learn. But if you are into video tutorials or something, there are a lot of tutorials on the internet. So one channel is Dabble Lab, DABBLELAB, and they offer a lot of resources for everything voice. Like I initially started learning from their videos when they started making videos, and eventually I ended up contributing some of videos to them as well. So Dabble Lab is definitely a good resource. You can check it out on YouTube. And apart from that, there's a Twitch channel of Amazon Alexa. You can look up to that. Every week, Amazon team does lots of webinars. Like every day, they have someone or the other from Alexa team speaking there. So you can learn from them, ask your questions. So resources are plenty these days, and that's the best place. And in terms of certification, well, there is only one certification, certification exam that validates your learning, and it is from AWS. Like you might have heard about AWS certifications, which are there for solution architects, DevOps, all those things. So they have one certification called AWS Certified Alexa Skill Builder Specialty, and I gave that exam 2 years back, and it does advise that you have at least 6 years of experience building with Alexa before you attempt that exam. So you can take that when you have enough confidence that you are good at building skills. So I can drop that link in the chat in a bit. And for that, I'm also taking up a course. Like I am myself teaching a course, so kind of a plug here to teach people how to ace that exam. So I just finished my course with O'Reilly Media, I think 2 days back, where I taught what are going to be asked in the exam, gave like taught people hands-on experience how to build it. And I'm going to take the same course in December, like in mid-December. So you could definitely register for that if you are interested. And yep, these are all the resources I have.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you also tell us how important is GitHub and Stack Overflow for a tech enthusiast? Like, is it important to have these kind of profiles and students for recruiters or whenever they're sitting for placements as well?
Yep, they are kind of important. Like having a GitHub does have a lot of impact. Like for personally, it didn't have much impact for me in my current role, but in the past, it definitely showed up when I participated in Google Summer of Code last year. Google Summer of Code is all about open source programs, and my project in Google Summer of Code was also an Alexa skill. So you can say that I find Alexa everywhere, and there the idea that I pitched to was Rocket Chat. Rocket Chat is like an open source alternative of Slack, and they are already present as a mobile app, a website, a desktop application. So it was pretty simple to me that I have to go in and pitch it. Why are you not available on Alexa? Let's do that. And at that point, I had some open source contributions prior to that on GitHub. And my contributions were very simple. They were not like contributing to some major organization or some major project. My contributions were that I built some Alexa skills, I open sourced them, I built some, like if Amazon released a new feature, I tried to create a code sample or code template and just open source them. Like you can start with open sourcing your own repositories. And like you don't have to go and contribute to TensorFlow or React or VLC or all these kind of major projects. You can start with your own projects. So that's what I did. Like I open source my templates, code samples that I built, and I just told Rocket Chat folks like, hey, see, these are my Alexa repos in the open. If these give you confidence, let me work on my project proposal. So yeah, GitHub worked, and Stack Overflow is like a heaven for resources for developers. We all go there for every day, I will say, for all sorts of use cases to copy and paste from there. So yeah, Stack Overflow is definitely something you need to have in your arsenal, and you should know how to use Stack Overflow. But that is something you will only learn with time. Like once you run into some issues, you go to Google, every link will direct you to Stack Overflow, and that's when you come to know the importance of that website as well.
It's nice. It's nice that the tech community, offers to help and, put up stuff there to, link it back to something that, somebody's stuck with. Um, Coming to the main part, so can you run us through the process of building an AI voice technology system?
Okay, yeah, sure. I will just try to share my screen. I have a picture that should convey most of the things.
Perfect.
Give me a sec.
So mentees, if you'll have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A section. We will be looking at questions post this session. Yeah.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so this is like a very 30,000 feet overview of how talking to Alexa might look like. So here's the user, and user talks to an echo device, which is audio. So once a user speaks something, it goes to the device. And on the device, there first of all, something happens. It's called as wake word detection. So wake word detection is where Alexa wakes up and then listens to your message. There is a very big misconception out in the world that Alexa is always listening to you and she can overhear you and all those things. So let me give you the fact that yes, Alexa is always listening to you, but she's always listening for the wake word, which is one of the four, like either Alexa or Echo or Amazon or computer. But if you say anything else, it just disregards it. It doesn't record it or anything. It is only listening for the wake word Alexa. And as soon as you say Alexa, it wakes up. And then whatever you say, that part gets recorded. And that audio file, like on the device, only the audio gets recorded. No processing happens on the device, nothing at all. It just records your audio and sends it over to the Alexa cloud, which you will see in the middle. And on the Alexa cloud is where all the magic happens. The first step that happens, it is speech recognition. And in speech recognition, all that happens is that audio is converted to text, and that the it can be simply talked as like speech to text. And speech to text happens, you don't have to worry about all that. Like all this part is extracted from you as a developer. Amazon's Alexa cloud takes care of everything. And after speech to text, machine learning and NLU takes place, where they actually make sense out of that text. Like an example can be, if I say 40 times, what does it mean? Does it mean 4040 times something? Or does it mean 40 times, like for drinking tea time is it is that? Or if you play golf, there is a term called tea. So does it mean 40 times? So if I say 40 times, it is very difficult for a computer to understand the context, what I'm talking about. So that's where the NLU part and ML part comes in, where they extract the context out of it. If a user is saying 40 times, does it mean the golfing term or drinking tea, or does it mean something is happening 40 times? So that thing takes place in NLU. And NLU breaks it out in intents and utterances and slots, which I have another picture, which I will show just in a moment. And after that, you have figured out in the NLU part, then you send a request to your service. And the request is again in the form of JSON, which we earlier told. So your service can be anything, like it can be hosted on AWS infrastructure, like on AWS Lambda, or it can also be your own web server, because essentially it's just a JSON request that you need to capture. And mostly people use AWS infrastructure because Amazon has developed both of these technologies, and they both interact with each other in a very easy way. And on AWS, there are other services. At the top, you see DynamoDB for using as a database, S3 for storing objects, media files, and images. Then there are other services like CloudWatch, which is used for debugging. Then CloudFront is for making files available faster. IAM is for access control and security. So all these technologies are in the backend side. And once you have used these technologies to process your information, then you finally write a text response and send it back. So your code can send a textual response, and it is sent back to the cloud first. And on the cloud, the text is converted to speech using SSMM, which is speech synthesis markup language. So since there is no screen involved, you have to actually speak it out because it's the speaker. So text converts to speech, and then finally it goes back to the speaker. And on the bottom, there is something called as cards. So essentially on the display devices like Echo Show, Fire TV, or even on the mobile Alexa app, you can also display some things. So response goes out both ways, but input can come in through that device. So that is one thing. Let me show you another picture. Can you see the other picture now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what happens, a sum up of what happens under the hood. We are taking an example where the user says, Alexa, recommend an Italian restaurant. So first of all, signal processing happens, a wake word detection happens. After that, Alexa captures the audio, which is recommend an Italian restaurant. And these are all the on-device processing. The audio file is sent over to the cloud. And on the cloud, first of all, speech recognition happens where it converts the speech to text. Then the natural language understanding, it figures out that the intent of the user is recommendation intent. User wants a recommendation. User could also say that, Alexa, tell me an Italian restaurant, recommend an Italian restaurant. Where is the nearest Italian restaurant? All these things basically have the same intent, which is get me a recommendation. So intent is recommendation intent that is sent back to your skills code. And cuisine is Italian. Cuisine is like a variable here. It could be like recommend a Mexican restaurant, Lebanese restaurant, or anything. So that variable is also sent. And on the skill, your processing happens. Like you can call the APIs like Zomato API or any other API to figure out where the nearest restaurant is. And then finally, you return the text back to the cloud. And on the cloud, the text gets converted to speech. And finally, the speech gets sent back to the device, where the device reads out like, I found these Italian restaurants, and then the conversation continues. So essentially, this is all the whole processing of how a voice system like Alexa works behind the scenes.
Wow, thank you so much for explaining that. I love that you explained it so like in layman that even I understood, how it works, and it's very interesting. So, mentees, if you all loved it, please do post in the chat section as well. Thank you so much for explaining that. Beautiful. I think your job seems very fun, and I wish I had a little bit of ability to even, do what you had just said. So, can you tell us what tools and softwares are required to build this respective system? So is there something in particular, or like what do you work on?
Sure, sure. So mostly there are two major websites that we use. First is developer.amazon.com, which is like the Amazon developer console, like you have Apple developer console, or for mobile you have one. So there is a Amazon developer console where the front end part of your skill lies. And in the front end part, you declare all these voice model. What are the utterances? What are the intents? What are the variables like cuisine? You can have like all these things you put in the front end, and then we use the backend, which is like the AWS infrastructure mostly, and that's where your backend code resides, your logic. So that usually resides on AWS, but you can use any web server of your hosting, be it GCP or your own Linux server hosted somewhere. Anything you can use. So not like any hard requirement there on the backend, but yeah, these two things connect primarily with each other. And for coding, it's again up to you. You want to use your own whichever editor you want to use. I personally use the VS Code because that has some inbuilt features for Alexa, like which helps in debugging and testing skills locally. So that is helpful. And then having a bit of knowledge of CLI also helps. Like if you know some Linux commands, that also helps. It is very similar to any conventional software project, be it for web or mobile. The approach is the same. There is a front end, there is a back end. You build it, you test it, and then you put up all the distribution info, and then you send it for review. And in the review, what happens is Amazon checks if everything is functioning correctly, or if there are any policy issues, or if you are infringing over someone's right. Like once I built a skill, an Alexa skill called as Jigglypuff, which used to sing Jigglypuff song, and yeah, it passed the review. But after a few months, I got a notice from Niantic that you are infringing over our rights. We own the rights to Pokemon, so you cannot use it. So yeah, these things Amazon tests for. And if you have any of these issues in your skill, then the certification team like rejects your skill. You have to make changes and submit again. But if there are no issues, then your skill gets live, and it is then published to the Alexa skill store. Like for mobile, we have a Play Store and App Store. There is an Alexa skill store for that, and you can check it out on Amazon.in by going there, and in the categories section, choose Alexa skills. Then you can see what all the different skills that other peoples have built. There are currently over, I think, 110,000 skills in the skill store in just over like 4 or 5 years. So definitely there are a lot of people working in this domain to get confidence that yeah, there is an opportunity here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Shatakshi is also asking us. So she's like, she wants your recommendation because she's currently still in college and learning AI and ML. As those topics are not covered in college, which I think all of us know, you tend to cover this externally. So she wants to know, how are you able to manage learning AI and ML things and concepts along with college courses?
Okay, I have a very personalized answer to that, which might not like work for all of you out there. My college didn't have any attendance issues. So that's the thing. That's the like the main secret of behind my being able to spend time learning all those things. Uh, but it is very easy to find time out for external learning. The only catch here is that you should enjoy learning it. It's not that you are just learning AI because your folks are learning it or your peers around you are learning it, and then you spend time and try to figure out. Unless and until you love what you are trying to learn, you enjoy your job, it will seem hard to find out time for it or something like that. But if you enjoy working on AI, building Alexa skills, or participating in hackathons which are related to Alexa, you will definitely figure out some spare time for it, because at that point it's a hobby. It's not like you are forced to do that. So managing time is definitely a challenge. I understand that. Like I have friends whose colleges had like 75% attendance rules and all those crazy things, which I'm definitely not an advocate of. But yeah, when you have all these foundations, you need to be good that you are able to manage time efficiently, like prioritize things. What is holds the most priority today? Like plan on a day-to-day basis. Like don't plan, like have a long-term goal in mind, but also try to plan on a day-to-day basis. Like today, if I have to achieve this, I will try my best to achieve this.
Brilliant. So she's also asking, can you suggest any research papers based on ML and AI so that they can get an in-depth knowledge in the field? Any probably links that you could recommend where they can find these research papers as well?
Sure. Like there is one research paper. Essentially, I'm not from the research domain, so I haven't read much into this. But if you are interested into voice, there is definitely one research paper which was authored by one of my friends that I could share with you, and I will surely drop the link in the chat in a moment. But yeah, that's all.
Perfect.
Sorry about having limited knowledge in this domain.
No worries. I think y'all can definitely Google it as well, and y'all will find a lot of research papers, and feel free to read all of them. Will give you all a better idea rather than limiting yourself as well.
Yep.
Somebody is also asking, how does a code convert to physical sound, and which site packages do you use for building it?
Sure. So I briefly mentioned a technology called as SSML, which is speech synthesis markup language. Think of it as HTML for voice. Like in HTML, you have different tags, right? Like anchor tags, list tags, and all those tags. And in the same way, in SSML, you have different tags, and these tags are like add a break, add a sound effect, add a speech cons. Speech cons are like interjections. So if there is a word called woohoo in the text, then Alexa can either say it like normally woohoo, which sounds very boring, but or she can show some excitement and say woohoo or something like that. So speech synthesis markup language helps us add these effects, play music, make Alexa sound boring, or speak faster, speak loud, or make her sound interesting, and all those different kind of things we can do with SSML. And SSML is not just related to Alexa; it is like a universal technology behind any voice interface. So it also works for Google Assistant. It also works for Bixby and other voice bots. So you can definitely read more about it.
Okay. So Haripriya is also asking a little bit of a
Mhm.
personal question, but she's
Sure.
tried app development, AI, ethical hacking, but she doesn't feel like any of that is her calling. And I think like most engineering students, we tend to have that problem. So she's
Yeah.
still trying to figure out what does she like. So do you have any tips on, how to figure out what do they want to move into and like decide on what they would enjoy doing?
Yeah, sure. So for a college student, it's definitely very confusing and tricky to pick a field that they should go ahead with. Even as I mentioned, I tried out and failed miserably in several other domains because there was definitely something missing. You may hear from the top names in the industry and get motivated and start outright devoting your time. Like I am right now advocating voice to you all. You might feel that, hey, voices might be something exciting. Let's devote time to that. But unless and until you love what you are doing, you may never get the results. So yeah, hear from people what they are doing and give it a shot. Maybe spend like a few weeks or even a month or two on doing that, and then if you enjoy it, continue it. Don't just continue with a field just because people are having good jobs in that domain or are making a ton of money in that domain or getting awards or recognitions, all those things. Like they are doing it for themselves. You are not doing it, they are not doing it for you. So you have to see what works out for you, and if you are happy doing it, uh, that should be the primary filter for having a career should be whether or not you love doing that job or not. And keep trying, like even if it's like your final year or third year, um, uh, think of it as a hobby at the start, whatever new field you pick it up. And if you enjoy doing it, keep on doing it. Otherwise, there is always a different field to switch to. And it doesn't have to be just limited to tech fields. There are a lot of people who are making their names in non-tech domains. Like I have a few friends who started with voice, like even in voice itself, and then they joined some companies where they got to work on growth roles or product manager roles, and they really enjoyed that, and making even like they have increased prospered in their careers. They are making more money, they are enjoying their jobs more, and they are more happy essentially. So look for that, and not just keep yourself limited to something that your peers are working on, or the best students in your college is working on. just do what you love.
Definitely. And I think if I go back to my colleges, I only followed my college curriculum. I did not, figure out what I wanted to do. So it's amazing that, students actually know, okay, this does not suit me. I want to move into a different domain. And it's very vast, as Ashi said. You can, try applying for everything, do projects, do internships. And it's amazing that you know what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I think we have one more question related to internships. So, what kind of internships would you suggest doing in the field for somebody who wants to move into the AI domain? And where can mentees find and get this kind of exposure?
Sure. So getting a real world experience and working on products that have live users is very important. Like basically, this is the definition of an internship. And this is very important for every student to do before they graduate. The sooner you start, the sooner you can get closer to figuring out the kind of career you want. Like I did my first in-office internship in second year. And even though it was a voice, an internship in the voice domain, I didn't like it, like just because of some personal reasons. And then I realized that jobs are not my thing. I'm better off freelancing. So that helped me figure it out sooner in my second year itself. But if I just graduated this year and I took up my first job this year, then I would have realized it later in my career. So the sooner you put your foot in, and the sooner you will figure out what is working out for you or not. And think of internships as like trial experiences that allow you to figure out pathways while also being a vital stepping stone in the career that awaits you. It gives you a taste of like what to expect and helps you understand what's right for you early on. And there is only so much that you could learn from your college curriculum or reading blogs or watching people share their experiences like I'm doing right now. Unless you go out there and validate your learnings yourself, it won't count. So searching for internships, start it as soon as you have acquired enough knowledge of a field. Like let's say you have started building mobile apps for 3 4 months, you have built a couple of mobile apps yourself for your personal projects, then just start searching for internships in that domain. Let others be the judge to your knowledge rather than denying or delaying it because you feel that no, I should spend more time, I'm not good enough to apply for internships yet. There is a very beautiful term we all might have heard about called imposter syndrome. Stay totally clear of that thing because that doesn't help at all. Let others be the judge. And another thing to keep in mind here is that never be intimidated of someone who might have a head start in the field and is clearly way ahead in his career aspirations than you do. Not all of us start equally, and but once we do start, we all have the same time to improve against no one but ourselves from that point on. And last most important thing, learn to channel your connections and network and constantly work on building a strong profile to land these opportunities. Be active on social media like LinkedIn and all. So definitely having an online presence helps a lot. And I'm not advocating for Instagram or TikTok or something like that unless until they are important to your career choice or related to your career in some way. For someone starting on LinkedIn in tech, LinkedIn and Twitter can be the platforms you should capitalize on to build your own strong online presence. And if done right, you will have recruiters reach out to you directly instead of you cold emailing them or something. Making a personal brand is very important in today's day, apart from having like strong skills.
Very true. I love that you mentioned this one line, validate your learning. So, once you have learned something, you can't just keep that information to yourself. Just go out there and, do projects in the field. That's absolutely amazing. Can you tell us, like, you mentioned about freelancing as well. Where do you find these freelance opportunities? Do you directly contact clients or do you apply on websites?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of different channels. The first way is definitely like through different platforms like Fiverr or Upwork or Freelancer.com. So these websites, you either make your profile there and clients reach out to you, or it works the other way where client post projects and you bid on them. Like you bid with other people that this is a project, I can do it for $1,000. Then someone else bids it for $800. Someone else does it for 1,200. So that's one way it works. The other way is that you put your profile on that website that hey, I can build Alexa skills and Google Actions, and these are my hourly rate or my per project rate. And then people will reach out to you saying that I have this requirement, can you give me an estimated cost and timeline? So that is one way through these websites and channels. The other way is like people reaching out to you, or even in your own network, if you know people, you just reach out to them and propose to them Do you have a requirement? I can build it out for you, especially in your learning stages. That's a very good way to grow. Like, channel your network and figure out who might be a good candidate. And even if your first project doesn't pay you that much, like, it's a good to have one project in your portfolio rather than a few thousand rupees, because having that project will help you more in the long run, that you can showcase that I built this and this is currently live and being used by these many people, and those extra money won't help that much at that point. So know your trade-offs and balance, and figure out the best way to move forward. And once you have acquired a good set of portfolio and good set of customers, then definitely you can increase your prices and move ahead in the field, whatever works out the best for you.
Definitely lovely. So I think that's an amazing, wrap to the webinar as well. Brilliant questions, and I love that you kept it so frank and easy for the mentees to understand how to move into the field as well. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure the mentees have as well. Thank you so much, Ashish. This was a lovely session. Before we wrap up, do you have a last piece of advice for the students who want to move into this field?
Sure. It's like, don't hold back because of concerns like, is there a career opportunity here? Or can I get a job in voice? Because voice is a very niche domain, just like 5 years old. And even the most experienced guy will be having just 5 years of experience. So when I hear, like, when I used to conduct a lot of meetups and events before the pandemic hit, and I had this question from attendees a lot: is how do I make a career out of Alexa? Is there any job opportunities? How do I make money? So I just try to tell them that this is a nascent field. Put your foot in. You will have the early mover advantage. And if you are just here for learning, like, don't hold back because of concerns like, is there an opportunity here? Look at it as, or not just Alexa, like in general terms, look at anything new as a hobby initially. And if you enjoy building for it, you can always continue with it and make a career out of it. And the primary filter should always be whether or not you love being a part of it. And finally, don't hold back. Speak out whenever and to whomever you want to. There might not be another chance. After all, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Yep, that will be all.
Exactly. Lovely. Thank you so much, Ashish. It was a lovely, lovely session. Thank you for sharing your information with us, and I'm sure the mentees will move into the field and definitely be grateful for the kind of information that you've shared today. A huge shout out to the QFIS team as well for arranging for amazing webinars like Ashish and mentors on board. Thank you so much, Ashish. Once again, all the very best to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much, mentees. Have a good night. Take care, and all the very best.